when it comes to relationships, we want to see how that person is relating to themselves. What is their self-image? What is the persona that they're projecting out there? And then how that individual is relating to this other individual in the relationship. And
Mm.
most importantly, how that person relates to relationship itself.
Hello and welcome to the Becoming podcast. I am JDP. You may know me from social media or from however else. And today we're trying to navigate the ebbs and flows of life and become the best version of us. Today, who I'm partnered with is a philosopher, a best selling author, and my longtime mentor, Ashkan Tashvir.
Thank you, Jamie. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Like, we have a lot of talks, just us two. Yeah, I get so much value from you, especially nowadays. When people think of philosophy, you think of Plato, you think of all these, crazy woo woo people, but you don't actually realize that
Uh,
there's philosophers today. And I'm so grateful that someone who's so integral of part of my development is someone who knows philosophy. So, Ash, do you mind giving us a 5 minute about your background into like how you got into philosophy then entrepreneurship?
well, yeah, I mean, so it's really hard to say who you are and giving a kind of a background that is accurate. But um, well, I can put it this way. I have one season of my mind being in technology. So I'm a technologist at root, as you know.
Mm.
My background was software development. And another part of me being an entrepreneur, a person who sees um, entrepreneurship being uniquely positioned to change human life, serve humanity, solve problems.
Mm.
And another part of me is me being an investor, seeing value in attracting the people with monetary capital so that they can fund some of these entrepreneurial ventures that they can fix human beings' problems. And lastly, I'm a philosopher. Now, like that's not a kind of a term that is often used in our era, and I'm quite intentional why I choose that, and we can just discuss it a bit more. But yeah, so I'm quite interested in human beings. I'm quite obsessed with how we live
Mm.
our lives and how we experience life. So yeah, so that's basically the last season of
The
my
last season
mind.
of
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
Yeah. What what was the idea behind this? Because I have my idea of why this is such a good collaboration.
yeah.
But what was your idea behind this podcast and becoming and why it's important for people?
Yeah, so like I'm creating a series of video content now, because I was mainly focusing on writing books,
Yeah.
and I still
And
am
you
in
did
the middle
very
of
well.
writing.
You
Oh,
did
thank
very
you,
well. I want to say that.
thank you. So I am in the middle of producing more content uh, in the format of a book. But at the same time, I came to this realization that it's quite important for me to create video content and podcasts as well, considering that, especially when it comes to the new generation, people in your generation, particularly, like they're not very, um, I think, interested in reading lengthy books. So
Mm.
I've realized that most of the people in your generation, they're actually very um, um, interested in consuming online content and videos and shorter content. And yeah, I thought that maybe it would be a good idea to create some video content there.
Yeah, I think it's sort of funny because being I don't like the word, but content creator, I sort of
Mm,
am part of the problem as to why many people under the age of 35 simply don't have the the capacity or the attention span to be able to consume anything longer than, let's say, an hour's worth of anything. So
yeah.
what I found important is, and the reason why I was so excited to hop onto this project was find what you have to say and your not doctor you don't like that word doctrines, but your idea is very valuable, especially to modern
Thank you.
society where we're kind of degrading a bit. We're sort of doing brain rot. Even my mind has a little bit of mold from all the short form content. So hopefully this is of value. Yeah. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
carry it on to the theme of today's episode, and this is one we came up with together. Actually, I'm the one who's mostly interested in what you have to say, to be honest. It's the modern relationship blueprint, how technology and changing social norms have redefined the way we connect and maintain relationships, because that's something you really have strong views about, being married yourself. And yeah, where what your takes are on essentially where society and relationships are going in today's world. Yeah.
Um, so one of the disease of thought that I think that we human beings we suffer from at times is when we look into something, some idea, some concept, some construct that have been and that has been created to serve a particular purpose. Um, and maybe it was quite successful in serving whatever it was intended for. Yeah. Let's say, for example, liberalism. Yeah. Maybe, liberalism as a political ideology has served and defined our relationship as citizens, as private citizens with the state. Yeah. So basically, creating certain boundaries, introducing certain principles so that the state acknowledges the liberty and the freedom of the citizens and then doesn't put its nose into every single aspects of people's life. Yeah. Now, so the disease of thought that I was mentioning is like when you take that out of context and you want to bring it into other aspects of our life, other dimensions of our lives. Let's say you bring liberalism and its principles into the relationship that you are having, you're building with your spouse, you're building with your partner. Yeah.
Mm,
So yeah, so I think that in the world that we're living in today, neoliberalism, and this idea behind everything needs to be transactional. It's an exchange. I do this for you, you do that for me. I give you this, and then you exchange that with some token. We call it money or other means. Yeah. So this has massively influenced alongside other factors. I'm not just blaming it all on neoliberalism, but yeah, so we took that out of context and we led our most intimate relationships being infected by something that was not even originally designed to play in that uh, ground, if you like.
I think that's a really interesting perspective of how something is not meant to play in what how something was originally made is not meant to play in that. So I'd like to bring it back to some examples. And I've got some videos here, some TikToks. And I know you
Okay.
hate, you're not a TikTok fan, but TikToks of just people stating their thing. And then if we can bring it back, so because I'm not sure speaking, who's listening here, but sometimes when Ash speaks, it takes me maybe a year for it to really sink in. Like, wow, that was what he was talking about. Um, so yeah, let's hopefully try to hone it in with some examples.
There's only one thing that all women want. People will tell you that they want money, they want someone tall. The reality of hypergamy for a woman is only by one metric. It's our ability to manipulate a man. You can be shorter than us, you can be poorer than us, you can be dumber than us in all other regards, but if we can't trick you, we'll still give you some respect. But if you're richer than us, taller than us, got more degrees and more qualifications, but we can trick you and we can manipulate you and we can derive resources. We cannot see you as a body to respect. There's only
So I think from what she's saying is, from my understanding, she's saying that modern day women, or maybe she's saying all women, she's not even saying modern day. She's saying all women will only like you as or respect you as much as they cannot trick you. Which
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree with, because it's painting all women as um needing to be able to trick some, like that's our what's it called, like our objective in finding a partner is to be able to trick them out of resource, or trick them out of some sort of, status or something. I don't believe that to be true, but I think the bigger picture is that how society has become. It's almost some sort of like transactional, uh which, marriage was always a transactional relationship. It was never supposed to be about love, but then we bring it back to love, and now she's saying it's not about that. It's about all women who, what's she saying exactly? This woman, she's getting a lot of views, but I actually don't understand what she says sometimes. She's saying
Oh,
we'll
see,
only,
like
yeah,
the thing is, like that's the problem with short content that we got many people got accustomed to keep watching them,
yeah,
and it doesn't give you enough, like in
that's
order
it.
for you to deconstruct that and then see in what context that whatever number of sentences you can fit into that 60 seconds is being said means, you know. So,
That
but like you want me to react to basically like
so
what we watched? Is that
my understanding is essentially she's saying women will only respect you as much as they cannot trick you.
I
So
cannot trick you? Okay.
being a married person, being someone who has a wife, who has two beautiful children, what do you think it is that women truly
Mm,
respect?
okay. So let's put it this way. This information is relevant, but you need to zoom out. I would encourage everyone that are watching this to consider the zoom out. It's not like only women; it's everyone. Yeah. So if you want to demand respect, um, if you want to be respected, you want to be assertive. Yeah. So then, in my body of work, I call it healthy relationship with assertiveness, amongst other aspects of being or qualities. So it's like if you're not a kind of a person that you are perceived as powerful. Now, by power, I don't mean the like a negative connotation associated with the word power. I mean,
Mm-mm.
if you are powerful in a sense that the other person knows that they should respect you, they should not lie to you. Um, uh, you don't respond well to receiving inaccurate information, especially when it comes to your intimate relationship with someone. Yeah. So it's not like my response is it's not just women, it's all of us. Whoever wants to demand respect, they need to consider being assertive.
Oh, I have a deeper question into this. So I have a dear friend who, let's call her Sally. Sally is dating a man 2 years younger than her, uh, George. Now, George, I would say, is not fully yet developed and grown into his adult self.
Hmm.
And in saying that, there is a bit of a power disparity because Sally's 2 years older. Um, Sally doesn't respect George because he lacks certain things, and
Hmm.
he is easy to trick. Like if for example, George doesn't have financial means, George doesn't have physical means,
Yeah.
he doesn't have the ability to provide Sally the life that she wants.
Yeah.
Um, and then Sally also George isn't as, I don't know how to say it without being offensive, but like switched on.
Uh-huh.
So Sally can get away with treating George poorly, or yelling at George, or just, so I can see that she doesn't respect George. But they clearly have love for each other. Now,
Mhm.
how did George gain respect from Sally? Like, because he doesn't, is it resources? Is it having to do that? Is it having to be more like, because he's not, I would say, not as mentally, his IQ isn't as high as Sally's. So how does someone like George build that respect for himself?
Okay, so see, there's a lot that we can unpack here. It's very interesting, first of all, for me, like why you're quite interested in that. But so the thing is, um, when it comes to relationships, we want to see how that person is relating to themselves. What is their self-image? What is the persona that they're projecting out there? And then how that individual is relating to this other individual in the relationship. And
Mm.
most importantly, how that person relates to relationship itself. Now, for
Oh.
example, like if some part of your upbringing, the way that you've seen the role models that you had, if, for example, you're coming from a family that there was a relatively stable father figure or mother figure, and their relationship was relatively working, and so the way that you are raised in a family, it's going to have a massive impact on how you're going to relate to relationship itself, the environment, the culture that you're living in. For example, in certain cultures, marriage, as you said, is mainly being seen as a kind of a contract. It's a transactional thing. In some other cultures, you can see that no, marriage is a different thing. So how we relate to marriage, how we relate to relationship, it depends on all of these different factors. So we don't relate to marriage or relationship in a similar manner. Now, then I talked about like how that person is relating to themselves, how that person relates to this other person in their relationship. So as you can see, there is this intellectual substrate sitting there, on
Mhm.
top of which then you build the constructs in your mind. Now,
Mm.
I know that I'm being a little bit technical here, but at the
No
end of
good.
the day, it matters. It matters how these different individuals are relating to their relationship and each other. So in this scenario you talked about, uh, Sally and George, um, I don't know. Like we need to look into the context. How this lady um, relates to George. Yeah. So what does she want out of the relationship?
Mm.
Sometimes people want resources. Sometimes people want um, to make a point. Like they want to project this persona and be admired for whatever they consider uh, being an achievement. Yeah. Sometimes people have their insecurities. They want to feel those gaps within. Sorry, yeah, so that's not enough information for me to respond.
So from what I'm hearing, what you said is it matters on how they view relationships and what they seek out of that relationship, and that is dependent on whether they will respect it. So from what I'm hearing, if for example George, or from what I'm hearing, if someone were looking for a successful person financially and also with a social standing, if George had financial success and social standing, that would be cause for Sally to respect him. Is that what you were saying?
Well, see, yeah, it goes back to the hierarchy of values. So, from a philosophical perspective, there's this realm called axiology. So there's this field called axiology, which basically looks into what is value, or what to be considered valuable, or how you as an individual may relate to the hierarchy of your values, what you associate or attach more significance to in comparison with other things. You have $20 in your pocket, and then you go to the grocery store and you want to get a piece of steak. Yeah. Now you tell me, Jamie, is the $20 the $20 note more valuable or the piece of a steak?
The steak,
And why?
because that's what I'm craving right now.
Oh, see, as you can see, it depends. So what happens in this economical exchange is um, you value as a customer, you value a piece of the steak over the $20 that you have in your pocket. But the butchery, the grocery store, um, value to your $20 over the piece of a steak. And that's exactly why,
Mm,
like what happens on every transaction, yeah, because we value things differently. Now,
mm,
when we talk about, you said that relationships are becoming more and more, we can see that they're becoming transactional. So that's one way to go about them. I know I don't say that it's a good thing or a bad thing necessarily. We can get to that conversation if you want to know my view. But just to describe how it is, this phenomenon, this common human experience that we're talking about, it's like, yeah, we exchange things. Like we find something valuable, whatever that can be, and then we exchange it with what the other person finds valuable. And
mm,
to actually look into this subjective level of what an individual finds valuable, and that's a sheer mystery in existence. Philosophy
mm.
behind will, why I prefer this and then you prefer that. There are lots of explanations for it, but it's a sheer mystery at the end of the day. So going back to the example of the relationship between these two individuals you mentioned, um, yeah, we need to see, what each values most. They both are receiving
Correct.
something that they
Otherwise, they
value.
wouldn't be there.
It can
Yeah.
be admiration, it can be financial matters, resources, it can be looking good, looking cool. It can be even like projecting this persona of, oh, I have this free spirit and I want to explore things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sometimes the self gratification of, oh, see, like I'm so good that I can attract younger people or something like that. And that doesn't matter if they're women or men or what
Yeah.
they identify as. And like that's a common human experience. Yeah,
Yeah. I think
yeah,
what you said about value exchanges is really interesting. And then if we go back to Sadia Khan's example, and she was, I think it's hitting me what she's trying to say. She's trying to say, bring it back to both of the values. If I can fool you to give me value
yeah,
without having to exchange anything,
yeah.
I cannot respect you.
Oh, I mean, like that's a general rule. Like I think for any almost relationship, unless a person is so polished and humanistic and if we want to talk about it from a religious perspective, you would say pious. But if we put that aside, and then we're talking about, I mean, human beings in general. I mean, yeah. So if anyone can easily fool you in whatsoever way, they lose respect.
And you think she's just trying to say crazy things to get a reaction? Because what she's saying is
I'm not really sure. I don't know this individual to the
uh,
depth of it that I
it's
can make comment because that was just a few seconds. But I can see that there is this common tendency, particularly with regards to the online creators, the content creators, that um, I think that like when you talk about when you generalize and then you create controversy or um, you create polarized views around
mm,
something, then it gets more, entertaining, or creates
That's
that kind of an excitement that perhaps some people like.
that's
Yeah.
true. I think a lot of her comments are just scorn men who want to blame people and like, oh yes, that's what my ex did to me. But as Ash mentioned, it's like, um, if any human being, whether just in relationship or business, can fool you into giving value, then you're a fool. Like that's not marriage or it's
Oh,
not relationship. It's not women. It's anyone. If you go on the street with
it's
a
it's
bunch
also
of
it's
money,
also actually, see, this is the thing. This is I think a good one in this
yeah.
conversation. You have a relationship with yourself too. And
Mm.
guess what? Like the last person you want to fool is yourself, because that's exactly the reason. If you manage to fool yourself around matters, you're going to lose respect for yourself.
Yeah. And then if someone
Yeah.
else can, if you can fool yourself, someone else can fool you. And then you're just a fool, regardless if it's your wife or your business partner or someone on the street fooling you. You're a
Yeah.
fool.
And very likely you're not going to be comfortable with that self-image.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, I mean,
Um, I'm going to do another TikTok now. This one is to do with marriage because that's something I'm not experienced with, and it's something I do want to eventually experience. And what makes good and bad marriages? Because I've definitely witnessed a lot of bad marriages around me, and I've witnessed some good
mhm.
ones. But recently, it's not been very good. It feels like it's the bane of everyone's life is to have been married to the wrong person, and it's the biggest mistake they've made. So
Marriage literally is the one relationship that will bring out the darkest side of you, side that you didn't even know existed. Your spouse will bring that out more than anybody, your parents, your friends. You guys will see parts of you that you didn't know existed. Mhm. Marriage is from a spiritual construct. It is to help build your character. And marriage will help build your character like no other relationship. If you can get through that, you're going to see a side of you that will blow your mind.
do you have any initial thoughts?
Oh, I mean, like that's again, I mean, true. The Again, it goes back to how a person is choosing to relate to marriage.
Mm,
But I would again zoom out. It's not just about marriage, but when you get so close to someone, that familiarity, because see, like we often um, have inauthenticities in a sense that this is the real you, and your self-image is going to be a little bit lower, perhaps. That's quite common. But then you're going to project a way more exaggerated persona. So there's
mm,
a gap between like the real you, let's assume that, and how you understand yourself, your self-image, the conversations that you have with yourself about yourself. And then there's also another gap between that the real you and um, the persona that you're projecting out there, the conversations you have with others about yourself.
mm,
Now, often, um, especially if you're young and inexperienced, um, and we haven't developed our senses yet so that we can see the nuances, we can see the details, we can become slightly better in reading people's intentions. So or that we can go beneath the facade. So what is going to happen is you're going to see that persona, what is being projected out there, and often that's way more beautiful, accepted, polished. uh it shines. When you
mm,
get closer to people, then um you then see the things that it was covered. It was deliberately covered because that person perhaps was not very comfortable with those insecurities, complexes, those shadows, the troubled side of us. We all have it. We all have it differently, but it's a human inclination, human beings' inclination to cover them up. Now, when you get close, that close to someone, that it's not just going out and then having some fancy dinner, dating people, and only seeing the time that that person is in the mood. Everything seems to be stable regarding that person. When you get close enough, then you are going to start seeing these trouble parts, the shadow sides, and that's quite confronting because you have created this perception of that person or that shiny part. And then now that you're getting closer, then you're going to see that, oh no, it was not as beautiful that I thought. It was not as polished or shiny as it was. And then you're going to put it on them. And that's your problem. And you're starting to point fingers and blame them. Now, getting this close to someone, going through ups and downs in life, it's a challenge. It's a challenge. You can see that when you look into many of the highest achievers in the world, that they have built trillion-dollar empires, you know, uh, they still didn't manage to gracefully build a family. Many of them. Now, this is
Mm,
not coming. I'm not coming from a judgmental point of view. I hope that doesn't
mm,
land like that. What I'm trying to say is, it indicates that perhaps building multi-trillion dollar empires um, is not as hard as um, building a family or a relationship. So building
mm,
relationships is hard, especially if we're talking about intimate relationships like marriage. It's really hard, but it's rewarding because if you relate to it as, see, this is me with my shadows, with my troubled parts, I'm joining another person, and that person also is going to have their troubled sides and their shadows. And then you choose to relate to marriage or relationship here as this thing that now you're merging some good part of the two separate entities. Now imagine that there is two different circles, they come together, and there is an overlap. And that overlap, it has its own characteristics and attributes,
mm,
dispositions, like that becomes a third entity. Now if you choose to um, first of all, if you acknowledge that, then there's going to be a third entity, and perhaps that third entity, in most part, is going to take priority. Yeah, we talked about axiology. Now you want to prioritize that. You want to say that I'm not going to be first, but the relationship is going to be first, and the other person also commits to that. That I'm not going to be first all the time, most of the time, but I want to associate or attach significance to this third entity called the relationship or marriage. So
mm,
that way, then you bring your mm, healthy qualities into the relationship, also acknowledging that there is an aggregation of both sides of the shadow sides of the both people in the relationship. So then you're going to basically create this synergic environment that 1 plus 1 is not going to equate to 2. It may be like 4 or 5 or 6. So you're going to uh, aggregate, and you're going to merge the healthy qualities you have, and you're going to integrate the unhealthy sides or the shadows or the trouble parts, and you're going to build it and go through transformation together gradually to the point that you manage to shrink that the shadow part and letting the light side thrive. Now, this is a kind of a pattern that I've seen in any of the relationship, particularly marriages, that I've seen that they are working. They maintain the integrity. They're committed to restore the integrity anytime some mistakes or some behaviors um, is going to compromise the integrity. They are so committed to restore the integrity of the relationship through generating trust, effective communications, um, assertively and authentically discussing the things that are there, not having hidden conversations, and so much more. Yeah, having the ability to cause enablement, encourage action,
Mm.
appropriate action, so that the relationship thrives, engender accountability. So all of these, as you can see, it's not an easy job. Yeah, it's not. It's simple, theoretically, but it's not easy at the same time. Hence, if you manage to embark on this journey of building relationships, so that they thrive, then it's going to be rewarding.
So, what is it exactly about marriage that obviously on one side you have the working marriage which does all these things. And then you can easily say that the flip side is if you don't say these things, if you don't have
Yeah,
these things. But from statistics, a majority of marriages do not end up working. Um,
yeah,
so if we speak to that and we speak to the stitch earlier,
yeah.
I think she was mentioning that it brings out the darkness inside us, not just inside the other person, that they're not meeting their persona, but it's almost
Mm,
like there's a darkness inside us. And that's something I've always genuinely been interested about. You can be dating someone for 4 years, 5 years, and you're very intimate with them, and you see a lot of darkness inside you. But then there's something about when you reach that commitment of marriage that changes that even more and alchemizes
mm,
it to something. And I don't want to be a negative Nelly, but speaking about
yeah,
bad marriages, because
yeah,
that's what
yeah,
we want to avoid, because that's the most common
yeah.
outcome is a bad marriage. So what is it about marriage, Ash, do you think specifically that brings out that darkness inside us?
Let me just create a little bit more context then before I answer this question. So the thing with marriage, like in a traditional sense, is a decision for life. Yeah, it used to be seen that way. It's a decision for life, and that's exactly why mm, we used to take an oath in front of all important people in our lives. Yeah. So, um, but the thing with it is a kind of a decision that you're making it despite tremendous amount of unknown and uncertainties. Yeah. So when you talk about, when you mentioned that statistically lots of marriages are collapsing, and then your rational argument could be, well, if not many people are able to make it happen, no matter how good you may want to think of marriage, then you may be disheartened to enter such relationship. Yeah, but I would say the same thing about entrepreneurship. So with entrepreneurship, it's even worse. Yeah. So um, like like almost 1,000 businesses collapse on a daily business here in Australia alone. Yeah. So over 90 something percent of startups, they just fail. They can't even survive the first um, year. So if you want to purely looking into it from an imperialist perspective, like you want to gather empirical data as if like this is a kind of a scientific project, um, you'd better not to even enter it. Yeah. So a marriage at its core, it's an irrational phenomenon. It's not irrational. It's not rational. Irrational means that it doesn't basically fully fit comfortably in the realm of reasoning and logic. Yeah.
Mm,
So, and like many other things in life, including entrepreneurship, if you want to be absolutely rational and logical, you'd better not to do it. Yeah,
mm,
because yeah. So when it comes to marriage, as I said, like you're getting so close to someone, and you let yourself very likely due to that familiarity and closeness, you're going to reveal, you're going to express some part of yourself that perhaps you haven't been comfortable enough to um, express it in front of others. And that kind of exposure to yourself and that kind of comfort that actually you bring out those shadow parts, the trouble side, putting it out there, that makes you being exposed to them, as if like this engagement, this marriage, relationship, it's going to cast light on your being, so that
mm,
certain part of your shadowed. It was not being revealed in the past due to
Mm.
lack of seriousness of that and the decision. Then now you're being exposed to them. In other relationships, you always know that there is this back door open. Like you always keep the back door open. You know that anytime you want, like especially nowadays, like people even don't come to closure. Like over a text message, they can stop a relationship. So you wanted to have that freedom. You wanted to have that um, possibility that you can break it at any time that you want. But when you enter marriage, both from a societal perspective, from those people, the people that are religious, from a religious perspective, because then that's the boundaries, that's a divine boundaries. It's to them, yeah. So it's something that if you break it, then it enters your spiritual realm. It interferes in your relationship with your God, whatever it means to you. So, and also from an economical perspective. So when people, like divorces are quite expensive, extremely
Mm.
expensive. And so, and you may lose stuff. And so basically, if you look into it from multiple different perspectives, from society, from economical perspective, from uh, other perspectives, and you see that it's a quite a massive risk. Yeah. So therefore, I think that due to its nature, it just makes people, um, yeah, some freak out, and some not enter it at all. Yeah. Another thing I would like to also add is, see, we talked about like how we relate to different things, and when it comes to authenticity, or you having an gradually developing congruent conceptions of various fragments of reality. That's what I mean by authenticity.
Mm.
Your conception of different parts of reality being congruent with how things actually are, being realistic. So the opposite to that is being sentimental, meaning that, like, for example, if I say marriage to someone, they immediately start thinking about, wow, warmth, family, love, um, children, happily ever after. And and I say marriage to someone else, and then immediately they're going to see the pictures, or going to see it's like fighting, argument, limitations, restrictions, divorce, financial troubles, humiliation, etc., etc. Now, what is the reality? I mean, like, the reality is not being overly optimistic or overly pessimistic, and understanding that it's a kind of a journey. Marriage is a kind of a journey that it has ups and downs, and it has both sides. It's mainly how you can manage to maintain its integrity so that it lasts.
Mm.
And by the way, that this is not just marriage. This is like anything
Everything.
of value that you aim to create, build, and maintain in life, from your garden all the way to businesses, investment portfolios, like friendships, like
Yeah.
it's there. But marriage obviously has its own unique characteristics as well.
So to keep working at it, like everything in life. It's like a garden. Okay. There's
Yes,
another.
yes. Yeah, so
There's
there's a
another.
substrate, and then you build your things on top of that. If anyone relates to marriage as this one-off thing, I think that they're doomed to be regretted. I mean, uh, sooner or later.
Yes, like many people. I know. Okay, there's another marriage TikTok we have here. Let me.
Marriage is not 50-50. It has never been 50-50. It will never be 50-50. I'm going to hold up a card and I'm going to show you what marriage is. Marriage is 85-15. 85 to the woman and 15 to the man. And let me explain something to you. The reason a woman is in charge of the house is because they know more about it. They know the kids' schedule. They know your schedule. They know the bills. They know where everybody goes. They take care of vacations. They run everything in the house because they care about everything. You a dude. You just know about your job. You don't know nothing else. You don't know nothing else. And guess what? I'm happy. Right. I come home and I'm happy.
What are your thoughts on that? I have so many thoughts on that.
Well, like,
Annoying.
okay, so the thing is, and Steve Harvey, I know him. Sometimes I watched his shows for entertainment. Um, I think that he particularly represent a large enough group of society, but not everyone would fit into that. So some may look at the comments like this and consider them quite heteronormative, like consider them that okay, so there's this tradition, there's this negotiated reality, shared reality that we had through, and yes, some of these construct have been reiterated trends historically. They survive, so there is a level of truism associated to it, but some people radically are, as you know, are challenging this status quo or even this trans historical norms. Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there so that you know
Yeah,
it
but
gives it a bit of
what are
more
your
context.
thoughts, Ash? What are your
So,
thoughts?
well, I mean, then again, like instead of talking about like this division of men, women, things like that, um, I think my experience and also in working with good number of people as a coach, as the person who've been working with them, supporting them, um, and being exposed to all these trained coaches that we have in our organization, and they go out there and they work with people. I think what he was saying is in part really true if you zoom out and then don't make it about women and men. In relationships, or for a relationship to stand and thrive, um, its integrity matters. Now, do I think that people, um, individuals, participants in that relationships, partners, would always make equal contribution? Um, or equal amount of contribution? Well, no, that's not the reality that I'm exposed to. But at the same time, we know that for the relationship to stand, someone needs to be taking care of those areas that requires contribution. Now, often this happens that one person ends up making more contribution to the relationship for it to stand and growth. That's so it's not exact like 50-50. Yeah, that's how
Yeah,
I see it. And do I think there's anything wrong with that? Well, not necessarily. Like, as far as it works, I take a more pragmatic approach. I go, okay, so if in this relationship, this thing works for these two individuals, and particularly like if it's working for the kids and people involved, then let it be. Yeah.
yeah. I think you have a way of calming me down, Ash, because obviously my first reaction was quite like the heck. But you're correct. If we zoom out and see it away from a
Mm.
man and woman thing, and each relationship, there will always probably be at one point one person contributing more. And I think back into reference with that, his expectation of relationship or a happy relationship is where he's contributing less, and that's just his view of it. As to why that got so much agreement and so viral, was probably because a lot of people echo that,
Yeah.
um, and simply just do not marry those people who require the other partner to put in 85% constantly to be happy. Because I grew up
I
with
mean, yeah.
very
I mean, like strategically, like sorry, I jumped into your
yeah,
thing. Um, I mean, like that. That also plays. How can I say? And that also has a room in certain relationships. Like
correct.
there are people that they enjoy being at service, serve both men and women. Like people. If the point here is like if I am happy to make 90% contribution in well, like we can't measure these contributions quite accurately. This is not a
Mm,
kind of a thing that positivist from a positivist perspective you can actually measure it. Yeah. And often like that measurement conversation is a kind of a big problem. It can be source of the problem. For example, would you bring equal amount of money to this relationship, monetary capital to this relationship or not. Like not everything is money. But putting that aside is like, yeah, so some people may enjoy being a contribution, being the majority part of the contribution, and they enjoy serving. So we can't have a kind of a general rule like, uh, but all we know, or I know at least from my end, is like for any relationship to hold, um, stand the course of time and thrive, there are certain amount of contribution required. Yeah. So for example, like if both parties are not necessarily people who initiate um, conversations and initiate projects, at least one person should be playing that role so that enough number of things being initiated, or for example, like if one person is not necessarily very responsible around like looking into the future, and like he or she would be this person who would look into the most immediate gratification or present, that plays its role because present matters, and the other person should be this person who's looking into a little bit of with a higher purpose, looking into the future, going beyond the current time. So basically, yeah, as far as the things that the relationship requires to thrive is being provided, that's the most important things to me. Yeah, it's like objectively looking into the garden and seeing that in order for this garden to thrive, we need this amount of light, this kind of warmth, this amount of water, this amount of. So if you give it what it takes, it thrives. Now, who gives it to it? That's a separate conversation. You know, as I said, trans historically, we have been developing certain traditions, which I value a good part of them. It's not like we need to dump them, um, just because like we have a like relatively new ideology
Mm.
wants to challenge that. In that sense, being conservative, not that I am conservative, but I'm saying this conservative point of view is like, see, it could have been chaos now. We have managed to put some sort of order in place, l- and this order is not perfect, it's not like serving everyone in the relationship and everything, but at least it's not chaos, and let's respect it. But then let's identify the parts that are not working, and one by one, with appropriate prioritization, let's actually give them what it takes, and then address those particular parts and transform them, change them, rather than the alternative view is no, no, everything is screwed. Like we need to jump in now and we need to revolutionize things. We need to change everything. So I do have a really good amount of respect for the trans historical way that we have dealt with marriage, which is cross cultural, by the way. At the same time, I know that the certain things in this traditional way of establishing relationships, particularly with marriage, it doesn't work. It doesn't belong to 21st century, and it's we're becoming more and more um, um, their dysfunctionalities are coming to the surface. They're becoming apparent. They're becoming visible, and they need to be addressed. Yeah.
Yeah. You always have a way of explaining the bigger picture, Ash. Okay, so we have the next one.
If you ever get cheated on, I know people hate me for this, but it's usually your fault. And the reason I say that, particularly with men, a cheating woman shows you every red flag from day one. If you choose to ignore red flags, you'll pay the price. Cheaters show you they're going to be a cheat. And how they show it is very simple. Their values. Cheaters show you their past. They show you everything. But ignoring red flags is always going to land you in that position. Now, whenever I have clients that have been cheated on a lot, 3 years she's still been talking to her ex, I was like, there's no way she can get to 3 years without you consenting. There would have been late replies. There would have been days their phones are off, not telling you where they're going. Their social media would have suggested something. They would have been signs you chose to ignore them. The price you pay for that, unfortunately, is infidelity. Denying the red flags is always, it's going to catch up on you. The infidelity is going to occur.
So essentially, she's saying a cheating specifically women, but let's bring it, a cheating person will show you they're a cheater from the start and be very obvious. So if you get cheated on, it then is essentially your fault. I
Oh, I
disagree.
mean,
I think
yeah,
some
yeah.
people are opportunistic infidelity in that they're not so much, that's not their character, but they saw an opportunity and they had that. They made a mistake. And I think the
Mm,
second one is some people will hide it. They will try to hide the fact that they have that tendency and they won't make it obvious. And then some parts I agree with her. Like I do experience where it's very obvious someone is going to be in a not faithful person, but yet you still choose to
mm,
be in a relationship with them. Then I do agree with her. It becomes your fault.
okay. Yeah, okay. Sorry. So I'd rather not to comment on the person, but on what it was being said.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So to say that that's your fault, that's a little bit too strong. Like that would be my first response. Um, it's a kind of victim blaming. Yeah, I know that this is a
Mm,
term that lots of people on the conservative end wouldn't like it, like they would
that's true.
associate it to the.
It's very
But
left wing.
yeah, but going beyond like left and right and this gotcha game of politics.
Hmm.
So no, I mean to say that that's your fault, in general, like that's just a little bit too much. The thing is, it's not a matter of blame, first of all. It's a
Mm,
matter of responsibility, you know? Now, if because infidelity can be really really complicated, yeah. So is it the new relationship, not like what sort of commitment they have, but if you're talking about it in the context of being married, and traditionally like the two people have committed that, whether it's an implicit commitment or explicit commitment that they're not going to um, be intimate with another person outside of the marriage, then um, so being responsible doesn't mean that you are to blame. It's not a matter of fault or blame. It's the matter of your ability to respond to the matters. Yeah. So it's a response ability. That's how I would relate to responsibility or your autonomy. So yes, if you are naive, if you're gullible, if you are a person
mm,
who um, haven't been exposed enough. You didn't make yourself exposed enough to different people, not knowing that not everyone is coming with the best intentions, and don't pay attention to the clues that people are giving you, especially when it comes to serious relationships or decisions like choosing a spouse. There is a part for you to own. There's a part for you to own. Now, owning means that, like, you could have um, had more influence over what may happen to you. Yeah. Now, if you have authentic awareness, if you are a person who would pay attention to those clues, you can avoid some unnecessary suffering that is going to be generated down the track for you. Yeah. So that's one thing. So I wouldn't take it to the blame conversation, but I would take it to the ownership or the responsibility conversation. At the same time, another thing that I would like to say is like I don't think that there are this personality type, fixate personality type that there are certain cheaters out there. Yeah. No,
really?
I mean, well, I mean, like it's not like there is a fixated personality type of cheater. I don't fundamentally tap into any personality type theory at all.
Uh-huh.
Now I acknowledge that there are innate temperament that is different from this person, that person, but for no reason, I accept that in innate temperament, taking over the overall personality of a person. So if the person is not polished um, uh, throughout like life as they're growing, and basically developing this persona so that they can fit into society. um that's a different conversation, yeah. So if you're going to talk about like psychopaths or sociopaths, or like the people that may have certain uh um even brain malfunctions, let alone like the tendencies, and so we're not going to talk about those niche um, area. Yeah, but no, I don't fundamentally believe that there is a type of people that are cheaters. Yeah, we have people that they relate to marriage or commitment differently. That's a very important thing. Yeah. So if you relate to marriage or commitment as this sacred thing, or as this thing that it's your integrity, when you say something, you want to stick to it, yeah, and you see that commitment as something that you put your word on something, you need to stick to it, and then you need to deliver that. So it's like how different people may relate to commitment. We have people that they relate to commitment in such a way that they are quite lenient, and they can just break their commitments whenever something is going to give them some immediate gratification, or they find interest in something. Or the people that they are much stronger in self-control. I call it responsiveness. When you're able, as a matter of as a result of your integrity, you're able to catch yourself right at the time that you're about to violate your own self-selected value structure.
Mm.
So yeah, so that is there. But to say that like certain people are just like their personality type is like a cheater, no, I don't think that's relevant. And then lastly, I would
Yeah.
add this, that yeah, so at the end of the day, see, if you as a person, you're a man, you're a woman, or if you don't polish your being, if you don't address your troubled side, if you don't become, if you don't develop your healthy relationship with authenticity, with commitment, with courage, with assertiveness, some of these fundamental qualities, you're going to pay the price. Yeah. So yeah, I would pay more attention to the fact that I, as a person, have the responsibility and ability to develop my senses so that I can see through things, so that I can read people's intention better, and I can be more of influence of and in charge of where life is going to take me. Like I'm not going to be this passive victim that life is just occurring to me, and anyone can actually steer the direction of my life towards the places I
Mm.
don't want. But
Yeah.
to be this active agent who can read through things, have the ability to see the vision, and also the discernment to tell the difference between, and hopefully then I'm going to make better choices, not only in choosing the spouse from the get-go, right person for me that is developed enough so that he or she can come along this journey with me,
Yeah.
but also as it progresses, then we can maintain the integrity of the relationship by addressing the needs and the wants of the other person,
So
not
if
having
we,
hidden.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry, Ash. So if we go back to your point, before when you said, because I really wanted to interrupt you there, but you were on a you're on a roll, so I didn't. You said something just to recreate the context of there's no
yeah,
such thing as a cheater. It's just
yeah,
who they relate to, how they relate to relationships. So
yeah.
there is a common saying that a cheetah can never change its stripes,
Yeah.
spots. Sorry, there's a saying that a cheetah can never change its spots. So from what you're saying that a cheater, there is no such thing as a cheater. It's
Oh,
just someone who relates to relationships leniently or commitment leniently. So are
yeah.
you saying that someone who's probably perhaps cheated or been unfaithful in the past, if they change their um, understanding of commitment, they could stop cheating?
Well, the thing is, see, again, it goes back to the how that person relates to commitment in general, how that person relates to relationship in general, how that person relates to um, their sexual urges and impulses. So this is not an infidelity conversation for me. This is more like how responsive that person is, how to what extent that person has self-control. Is that person mature enough that they can um, let their logical mind and developed consciousness um, drive and run the show, or they're going to receive immediate signals and impulses from their genitalia and they're going to act upon it.
Wow, that's crazy. So perhaps let's give an example of someone who's been unfaithful in the past and they clearly had that lack of control. According to a lot of beliefs, is that person who lacks self-control will not be able to control themselves ever. But you're saying that if they change their way of viewing relationships or controlling or however, like polishing their being, that it is possible for people to change that.
Well, I'm the strong believer in transformation. So I mean,
Mm,
if like I think, okay, so let me be a little bit controversial around here.
let's do it.
If someone is coming to you and then is telling you that you are whatever you are, um, and you're fixated and you're doomed to be the way that you are today, my best advice is to escape from them. There's nothing more disheartening, disappointing, and limiting than that view in general. Now, this doesn't mean that I think that um, the transformational journey for each person in different contexts is going to be as easy for as it is for someone else. But no matter how hard or easy you're going to find it, transformation is possible. Like, see, a very good analogy for that is your physical health. Your physical health or being in shape, being fit, apart from certain exceptions, then we don't necessarily to discuss that. It's like there's so many examples. Like we have empirical data available. There's a massive literature behind it that people that are considered obese, if they really put their mind into it, there's science behind it. They can change their diet. They can change their. They can get personal trainers. They can go through certain exercises. A person may need to give it 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Doesn't matter. Like it's different for the other different people, but it is possible. Transformation is possible.
That's amazing. So basically, cheaters or who people who deem themselves that they just need to lose the weight of infidelity, similar
Well,
to
see,
how a fat person, an obese person becomes skinny. Just run a lot.
again, like we need to see that is that the kind of a habit that that person has. Like any other habits, like it's like that's something you first need to realize that that's not serving you. That's not
Mm,
serving you. And then when you see that the way that you're relating to something is not serving you, when you see that the way that you're relating to commitment in general, regardless of the context, this is a very important context. Obviously, you're talking about marriage, but if the way that you currently are relating to commitment is not serving you, realize that, identify that, and then the irony is then you need to be committed to change that your
changing
relationship,
that.
transform your relationship with commitment. And that, like I'm not saying that it's an easy peasy job. I'm just saying that it's possible. And then that's exactly the time that you may need to work with trained coaches so that they can support you. They can go to walk you through certain intentional conversations or sessions, work with you, support you in going through that transformation.
Fidelity coaches, and if anyone knows of any, and I'm not scorned by the way if I'm acting like I'm
Mm.
scorned, but I think you've given a lot of people hope in just stating that it is possible to change no matter how fixated they say something is, such as having a cheating gene or having being a cheater. I think you gave a lot of people hope as to how they could handle that.
Yeah, and then let me add this. See, like often we think that, oh, I'm a person and this is my identity. Yeah. So this is
Mm,
a common conventional way of looking at it. Well, so you're not just a person, you are people distributed across time. You are a community of people distributed across time. Because see, Jaemie right now and Jaemie after this conversation is not exactly the same person.
Ooh.
And in Jaemie in a day, in 5 days, in a week, in a month, in a decade, is not going to be the same person. Yeah, and that's a good thing fundamentally. If we're not standing still, like we transform, whether we are conscious of it or we're not conscious of it. Yeah, if whether we bring our attention, intentional consciousness to it or not, you're changing. Things are changing. So the moment that you realize that it's not just one person, um, then things change for you. That's how you can relate to it. And the whole idea around polishing your being and being in charge, being of influence, being a leader of your life is you gaining the ability to see these constituent parts, see what's working, what's not working, develop your senses more accurately and authentically, so that then you can identify, like with vulnerability, when you see certain things not working for you, you get thrilled. Now, I know that lots of people may not relate to it like that when they find some flaws, some weaknesses, like they may not like it. But if you have a healthy relationship with vulnerability, you get thrilled. It's like you've built this software, and your quality assurance team is coming up with tremendous number of bugs. Now, your immediate reaction may be like, "Oh, it's not good. We're coming up with all these bugs." But immediately you're going to be thrilled because it's you and your team who could find it before it goes to the end users paying for it. So the moment that we find these parts that are not working for us, they're not serving us and our intentions, it's going to lead to you addressing it. There are many, many ways like to address these troubled sides, and hopefully it's going to contribute to your overall integrity, and you become more integrous person. And one of the major benefits of becoming more integrous person is more workability, a higher probability of you fulfilling the intentions you care most about.
Mm. What you said earlier about that we're constantly different people. We're a community of people, and that at every moment we're a different person than we were the other day. I think that means so much hearing that, because sometimes I feel like I'm fixated in who I am,
Mm,
and I'm like, I wish I was more like this.
mm,
But hearing that makes me feel like, well, there's Jaemie 2 days can be in 2 days could be more like that.
mm,
If the Jaemie yesterday is a different Jaemie, then possibly the Jaemie in 4 months is definitely more like that.
yeah.
So that
I
that
just want
really.
to also be responsible around this conversation. So we're not saying that you fluctuate like every moment like that. We're
Yeah.
saying that you are in a constant state of becoming. Yeah. So even if we were to acknowledge that there is some unique being or distinct being, some people call it soul or spirit or inside you, at the end of the day, your conscious mind is constantly trying to conceive and understand that very innate, unique being, the mysterious part of you, more and more. It's like your conception is constantly evolving of
Mm,
yourself.
mm,
Mm.
awesome. Now, speaking about becoming, we have a video here against Sadia Khan. She likes
Oh,
to talk. Actually, I do watch her. And this is becoming the 1% woman. It's very funny because you're obviously a man, but a lot of men comment on these things, and I'd love to get your perspective, being another man. Again, man, woman, whatever, but another man commenting on what she has to say.
If other men can still see your girlfriend naked, then less jealous of you.
Yeah. What would you describe as being a top 1% female?
If she is the most beautiful girl in the world, but she is available and accessible to lots of men, and she's disloyal to you, she loses her value. because she makes you look like an idiot and she makes herself look accessible. So without that loyalty factor, and loyalty doesn't just mean she's not sleeping with other men, loyalty also means she's not exposing herself to other men. Because before, you'd have to work to see a girl naked, really, really have to work for it. If she's allowing access to the rest of the society to see that, I do think it takes away her mystery. 1% woman would have to make her man look like somebody that other men are jealous of.
Again, this I am not quite sure on her agenda. But for me, it sounds like it's insinuating that, like, for me,
What do you read in that? Like, you're
from what I'm
choosing this video.
understanding,
Yeah.
she's saying that a 1% woman is someone who is inaccessible in a sort of intimate way to other men, and is beautiful but also inaccessible. So I think she's referring to OnlyFans and people who
Yeah.
sell their bodies online for profit.
Yeah.
I think that's a 1% anybody. And then at the same time, we're saying that the whole value of said gender is to do
Yeah.
with how naked or not naked you can see them. What about their
Yeah.
intellect or their value as a say they're an entrepreneur? Or
Yeah.
what about Melanie Perkins? If Melanie Perkins starts to sell her nudes online, does she
Yeah.
become less of a 1%? I don't know. I think
Okay.
to me then it becomes what is 1%, and
Yeah.
however, I don't really care what that is, but however that criteria is measured, I don't think that
Mm.
accessibility to their private parts is the entire criteria. That's my issue.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mm,
Well, see, the thing is, we all sell ourselves. Yeah, we
yeah.
all sell ourselves. Now, some we are retailers, and some others are wholesalers. And so, this is something that, like, it may not be the most comfortable conversation to have, but
She's wholesaling her
Car,
body.
Car yeah, Carl Jung actually talks about this um, series of archetypes. Yeah, so the patterns, the descriptive patterns of behavior. Like, for example, we have um, king archetype, we have queen archetype, we have. So these are like a kind of a symbolic language that it describes. mm, a series of patterns of thoughts and behaviors. Yeah, one of the four major archetypes that he actually discusses that we all have, we all relate to, is prostitute archetypes. It's like everyone sells themselves. Yeah, you want to get a job, you put your resume together, you go there, and then you want to sell yourself. As a
Mm,
leader, you want to sell your vision. First, you need to sell your vision, and then, like, you're going to align certain number of people in your team, and ultimately, we put our damn creativity and innovation and qualities there, and we create a series of product services offering, and then we need to sell those products to the end users, the people that they want to exchange that voluntarily with money, and that's how you make money. So and I know that, like, sales is something that, like, many people are not very comfortable with. Yeah, and see, it's very interesting that um, um some people say that they don't like to be sold to. Yeah, but at the same time, everyone loves shopping. Yeah, so they go
mm,
in and buy things. So, coming back to what she was saying, is like, I think we all project the persona out there.
mm,
Not that I think, I definitely know that we all um, forge or develop some more authentic, some less authentic persona, so that we can fit into the society. Yeah.
mm,
So you cannot be persona less, if you like. So we create personas so that we can fit into the society. Now, when it comes to women, I mean, again, trans historically, and some would even argue biologically. So a woman coming to an age, um, they would be like at their peak of their value in the sexual marketplace. Now, whether they want to be in casual relationships or in marriages, or basically whatever kind of relationship you want to be in, they're going to be at the peak of their value in the eyes of perhaps most men. Yeah. Now, do
Correct.
I agree with it or disagree with it? I mean, like it's not my place to agree with it or disagree with it. It's like a phenomenological fact. This is what is unfolding out there. Now, some may want to challenge that and say that they should not. I'm not discussing what we should or what we should not here. What I'm talking about is around the isness of how things are at the moment. So, having said all of these things, then if you're projecting this persona out there, that you know that it's going to be perceived by perhaps mostly men as promiscuous or too revealing, and again,
Mm.
that goes back to the culture. So, ironically, the way that like this lady in the video was like dressing and the makeup and everything, to some cultures that actually would indicate revealing too much.
Mm.
Do you understand like how this construct would be really complicated? Yeah. So that level of makeup or the way that the hair is done, and so that wouldn't be or like tight clothes or something like that. In certain cultures,
Wow.
not accepted at all. Now, in some other cultures, like for example, like you go in some part of India, I've been there. If a woman reveals their belly button or the belly part, it's perfectly acceptable. But for example, they cannot show their legs. Yeah, in
Mm.
some other part of the world is very different. You know what I mean? So where you want to put the boundaries, that's a completely different conversation. But having said all of these things, at the end of the day, when you're living in a society that you know with good level of awareness that you're going to be perceived as XYZ by people out there, and you intentionally do that, that's your choice. Yeah. And I'm
Hmm.
not saying that people should have should not have that choice. It's your choice. But then freedom of choice doesn't come with freedom of from consequences.
Yes.
Now, in order for me to make my choices and regulate myself to a good extent so that I can fit in the society, at the same time, not becoming one of the crowd, yeah, so that I lose my whole identity or how I relate to myself, there should be, I think, a kind of a balance that a wise person would mm, take it seriously. Yeah. Say, for example, if like in an ideal world, it would be awesome to have anyone putting on any type of clothes that they want and then go out there, no matter how revealing or exposing it's going to be. Yeah. But the thing is, we know that the existing culture, and it's for centuries. Um, you're, like certain type of clothes and certain type of um, the way that you may carry yourself, it's an indication of something. So the society would receive it at that as that. Yeah, and see, we can talk about an utopian environment. Yeah, but we know that, see, like you can illegalize certain things, and we have done, like especially in modern societies, we've done. Yet you do have a good high enough rate of crime. So you cannot say that criminals should not be there. I mean, ideally, no one wants criminals to be there, but they're there. That's why we have prisons and we have police and we have like legislative systems, etc., etc. Now, it's like, is there anything fundamentally wrong for you to go out there in downtown and waving $10,000 above your head, putting on a diamond necklace and be shiny and everything at night, walking on the street? No, fundamental, there is nothing wrong with that. But is it wise? So it's not like if something happened, if for example, like I'm doing that and then I'm going to be robbed, of course that I'm a victim. Of course that like whatever that the law needs to do regarding that offender needs to happen. But did I make a wise decision? So long story short, like what I see here is like um, you have freedom of choice and you should have, At the same time, that doesn't guarantee that you have freedom of consequences. And a wise person, knowing what situation they're living in, understanding that most men value certain things and women value certain things, and yeah, they would take it into consideration. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I think to label it 1%, 2%, I think that was so interesting what you said, Ash, is that what she's wearing could be deemed as quite promiscuous to some cultures. Yet she's spitting out that this is what makes you more or less than,
Mhm.
without being aware of the sort of worldwide context of things is
Yeah.
interesting. But I think going back to the point of labeling things like what equates you to high or low, I think I agree with you, Ash. It's got nothing to do with that. It's more, this is the society we're in. These are the wise decisions if you want to be deemed respectable in that society. And if you know that doing these actions will allow people to perceive you in quite a way,
Mm.
that's your choice.
Yeah.
But you can't expect society to treat you like that's the
Well,
consequence. It's the
yeah,
same as,
yeah.
yeah, what you said.
Unfortunately, I mean, I would like to add that unfortunately, see, like when it comes to sex workers, like I had interactions, I talked to some, and the thing is, I think some of them are extremely smart, people, and at times I know that like sometimes they do it deliberately, as if like there's this thing that this is me, this is what I want to do, and who the hell you are to tell me. And see, we can take that approach elsewhere in our lives as well. The thing is, to what extent, see, um you may have problem with authorities, you may have problem with taxation system, you may have problem with academia, you may have problem with media, so as an individual you can have problems, so many different problems, but then the thing is, are you going to be are you going to fight all of them at the same time, or you know what I mean? So it goes back to, again, that the hierarchy of value that
Mm,
you, in a self selected manner, you're creating for yourself, where you want to put your energy. Yeah,
mm,
so that's the thing.
Sorry, I just want to wrap up this point before
Huh?
we close up. From what this lady was saying, she's essentially saying that meeting these certain criteria or not meeting these certain criteria do not make you part of this sort of elite percent, which is desirable and people want. And if you don't meet that criteria, then you subsequently go to this bottom, which is the rest of the 99% of
I
plebeians
mean,
who
I mean,
show their
yeah. So
bodies
see,
and flash.
like I would, yeah. See, the thing is, I think that I can easily consider myself as one of the people who's like got the financial needs and sorry, means and everything. So I'm comfortable financially in everything, as you know, and I do have a good number of friends that are quite wealthy, and the thing is, amongst them there are people that they actually value. It again goes back to their value system and then how they relate to women. Amongst them, there are people that they actually want uh, trophy partners. Yeah,
Yeah.
even they marry them. They want hot, sexy partners as a
Mm,
trophy so that they can take her like in different places and everything. And they actually want the woman to they encourage the woman actually and admire her for um show herself off.
mm.
Yeah. So
But what if
that's
they
part of
were
the thing that actually,
but what if
sorry.
they were revealing themselves on like OnlyFans? So I think what Sadia is saying is you've got
Yeah.
that woman, right? Um, so there's this culture going on in like millennial and
Yeah.
Gen Z is essentially that every woman is trying to attain a millionaire man. And
Yeah.
what Sadia is referencing to is like what kind
Mm,
of woman can attain that rich, successful, good-looking man. And she's saying
yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
who reveals themselves on OnlyFans or like does porn or is a sex worker or
Yeah.
any
Yeah, yeah, no, no,
immediately,
that I 100% agree. Yeah, so
yeah.
if someone really wants to, yeah, so I don't think that the most, if they're going to land millionaire, billionaire men, I don't think that that's compatible. Yeah,
And why is that, do you think?
that's well because see, like when you are at the top, like even if we're talking about financial in a neoliberalistic society, when you are at the top, more money means more choices, more you have freedom, you have more options, and if you have options to go with the person who the people at the top, they would value rarity.
Mm.
They would value rarity, and that's a kind of a phenomenological fact that the more scarce you are, the more valuable you're going to be. Yeah, this is not a one-on-one comparison that I'm going to use like gemstones, but then I'm not reducing human beings to be gemstones. But one of the reasons that a diamond is so valuable because it's rare. Yeah. So, and that applies to the market with regards to any kind of product that you have. Like Rolex is valuable in part because it's rare, like it's not so accessible to everyone. The moment that you mass produce something and putting it out there, anyone can have access to it, then it
Mm.
loses its value.
Mm.
And see, the typical mindset of a wealthy person is they don't buy essential things. So if you go to when you go to the house of a wealthy person, you see very expensive, valuable paintings on the wall, or even the things that they use, maybe like the chairs, the table. They buy stuff that don't depreciate. They
Mm.
hold their value, or even appreciate in value. Hence, it makes sense to take care of them, yeah, and
Mm.
have them. They don't want essential things. That's a completely opposite worldview to majority of people.
Mm.
They take pride in buying essential things at discounted price. But if that thing that is discounted right now as you're buying it, it means that like right away it's going to lose its value anyways. So no, this was not me reducing human being to things
Correct.
or objects.
Correct.
Basically what I'm trying to say is that a typical mindset of a person financially at the top is they value rarity. And then if you are portraying this, if you're projecting this persona that you're so accessible, you lose your value
Correct. Correct. I think what
in
the
their eyes. Yeah.
Correct. I think what Sadia Khan probably not got wrong, but what she meshed together is this concept of 1%, 2% person or whatever, and what, creates that, and versus what is it wealthy person wants. Because those are two separate
Yeah.
conversations. The first conversation was about, what is it that makes the top 1% of a good person, you know?
Yeah.
And then immediately linking it to that's exactly what a wealthy man wants. Well, no, what a wealthy person wants is essentially rarity, inaccessibility, which I completely
In
agree with.
general, yeah, in
Yeah,
general. Like
in
again,
general,
like
like,
wealthy
maybe
person would be a massive generalization,
correct.
but
Maybe there's some millionaire out there who wants like someone who everyone can attain. But that's on
yeah,
but in general,
yeah,
I agree with that. But then mixing the two and saying like, oh, you must be this to be deemed as a top percent. I think that was quite an
mm,
overstatement for her to say. And I think she just is a queen of overstatement. But
yeah.
essentially
So
that's
let me
probably
let me
why
let
she's
me let
doing
me let
well.
me explain this thing, and then so the thing is, at the end of the day, we talked about intentions. Yeah, the intentions you care most about. That's a kind of a
Yes.
sentence that I've used a couple of times as we were going through these things. See, this is the intentions that you have. Imagine that the intentions are here, and then this is your existing value system. Now, if these two are not compatible and align, your existing value system, what you care, or like your values are going to pull you from one side, and your ambitions and intentions are going to pull you from other side. Say, for example, if you want to become wealthy, you need to value money in a particular way. You need to value responsibility. You need to care about commitment and integrity. You need to be this person who can wake up in the morning and then attend um, certain different tasks in order for you to generate that amount of. So if these are not compatible, they will pull you from these. Now, one way is to forget about these intentions that you have and stick to your existing value system, or keep your intentions and ambitions and be willing to change your value structure so that it matches those things that you want to achieve. Unfortunately, my experience and through my studies, I've seen most human beings, they stuck in the middle. They keep their dreams here, and they show tremendous amount of resistance, inertia, in order for them to shift or transform their value structure. So therefore, they get stuck in the middle, and they experience a lot of pressure in life.
I
Yeah.
agree. When two humans have, when your dreams and your values don't align, then that's you're asking for you not to achieve success. For example, you want to be free, you want to be able to do what you want, and again, I'm not judging anyone. I'm a woman, so if you want to be free to be naked wherever and sell your nudes and etc., but you value and you want to have a marriage with someone who's well off and values scarcity and rarity, and that's on that person, then those two don't align. And how are you supposed to converge it into a single aligned goal? Those two are pushing
Mm.
different directions. Awesome. So, all right, folks, that was an epic podcast where we spoke about a lot about relationships, and I hope everyone got some value off that. I know I did a lot. So, Ash, that was very wise words from you.
Oh, thank you. I knew like the topic that you wanted to go through, but it was interesting, like the videos you chose and everything. Okay.
And speaking of all of what you've been mentioning in terms of, let's say the things you've been referencing, they're actually
Mm.
all currently on a book. Is that correct? So
When
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 you
we're
when you
talking about
reference,
like polishing our being, and yes, yeah.
correct. So
So
you were
basically the book.
using a lot of
Yeah.
jargon from your book. What was that book again? Could we please tell everyone?
Yeah, so the main book, it's called Being, um, and then the subtitle is the Source of Power. That's
Hmm.
like around 700 pages of books. And then there is Human Being. Another book is called Human Being, which if someone is interested in learning about the being framework and different aspects of our being in terms of growth, I would suggest them read the Human Being book. And then also there is a fiction book that like my last book that I've published is Becoming: The Emergence of Being. It's the story. You can also listen to it or yeah,
Yes, and
read it.
Becoming specifically is the one I'm very excited to read. And where will all of these be
Yeah,
available? Are they? I'm aware
it's
they're
almost
available.
everywhere. Yeah,
Yes.
almost everywhere. Like they can get it from Amazon or the Kindle version, the printed version. There is the audio version as well. Yeah, so they can get it.
Awesome. Yes, I've read Peeing. It's a really good read. But yeah, I'm excited for more of these where we sort of dive into your content, but relate it specifically to the today and how we
Mm.
can use this information to help navigate through our world today in such a ebbing and flowing society that we've got. So yeah, I appreciate your time, and we'll do the next episode soon. You can find Ashkan on his which is at Ashkan Tashvir on TikTok, Instagram, and you're obviously watching him on YouTube right now. You can find me online at jdp.ppp. You'll find a lot of P's on Instagram and TikTok as well. Awesome. Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
very much, Jamie. Thank you, everyone.